Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, students. One cannot overstate the profound effects that COVID 19 is having on our lives, our families, our communities, our businesses, our overall health and education system, and the global economy. As the pandemic continues to intensify with no certainty of when it will abate, we at SRRGV have initiated the e-learning pedagogy for our students. So I, Harshit Wagrecha, will be taking up the macroeconomics portion of class 12, and I'll be referring to this book Introductory Macroeconomics by V.K. Ohri. I'll be starting with chapter number 2, some basic concepts of macroeconomics, as the first chapter is omitted in the syllabus. Okay, so the very first question, what is macroeconomics? The term macro means large. I repeat, the term macro means large. So when we study economic issues or economic problems at the level of economy as a whole, we call it macroeconomic issues or macroeconomic problems. So that branch of economics which deals with economic issues or economic problems at the level of economy as a whole, we call it macroeconomics. So if I have to give you some examples, concepts such as GDP, national income, aggregate demand, aggregate supply, banking, money are all of the chapters which you will be covering later in detail in this book. So while you were in class 11, you already studied microeconomics. What was microeconomics? The study of economics at individual level. Individual output, individual demand, individual supply, consumers, equilibrium. So those were the concepts which you studied at individual level. Now when you come to macroeconomics, you are actually going to see how the economy functions, what are the various ways in which the RBI monitors the commercial banks, how commercial bank functions, how foreign exchange rate is determined, balance of payments, etc. So those are the things we'll be covering in detail in this book. Very important from the point of view from economics. Again, before I jump to question number 2 and 3, where we discuss about intermediate and final goods, I want you to understand the concepts of goods first. What are goods? Actually, countless number of goods are produced and consumed every day. If I have to give you examples, goods such as shirts, pants, books, pens, cups, plants and machinery, cars, motorcycles, etc. are produced every day and even consumed. So, if I have to actually classify these goods, we can have we have two bases of classification: intermediate and final goods, consumer and capital goods. First, we will be discussing about intermediate and final goods. Intermediate goods are those goods which do not cross the boundary line of production, which are still in the boundary line of production. So goods which, the term intermediate itself means something which is in between, and final goods are those goods which have crossed the boundary line of production, which are beyond the boundary line of production and are now ready to be used by the final users or the end users. So if I have to give you an example, let us take an example of milk. So if we as households go to market and buy milk, it will be considered a final good because we are using it for our own wants. We will be directly consuming it. However, if the same milk is converted into ghee or paneer by the dairyman and it is sold as butter or paneer, then milk will be considered as intermediate good. Why? Because some value addition is taking place. He is reselling milk into and converting it into some other product, right? So that will be considered intermediate goods. So now come to page number 18, where we talk about the difference between intermediate and final goods. I'll read it out for you. Intermediate goods, I'll first talk about intermediate good, then final good. The first point, these goods remain within the boundary line of production and are not ready for use by their final users. For final goods, these goods are outside the boundary line of production and are ready for use by their final users. Second point, these goods may be used as raw materials for the production of other goods during the accounting year, as I already explained to you. And for final goods, these goods are not used as raw material for the production of other goods because we directly consume it. Third point, these goods may be resold by the firms for profit, like I explained to you. Like milk is converted into butter, so they are selling for they are having the value addition of rupees 20. So making profit. So again, intermediate good. However, for final goods, these goods are not resold by the firms for profit during the accounting year. The fourth point, value addition is still to take place in intermediate good, and no value addition can take place in final goods. The last point, which is also the most important point, that intermediate goods are not included in the estimation of national income, whereas final goods are only the goods which are included in the estimation of national income. So I want you all to understand this concept really well. Why do we not include the value of intermediate good in the estimation of national income and only the value of final goods? So let us take an example, continue with an example of milk and butter. Suppose if I go to market and buy milk at rupees 50 per litre, I'll include it in the estimation of national income because this is the final value, final good, if I as a household go. However, if this milkman is, if the dairyman is converting it into butter and selling the same at rupees say 100 per kg, then we are going to include only the value of rupees 100 per kg in the estimation of national income and not rupees 150 and not rupees 150. Only rupees 100 per kg. Why? Otherwise there will be a problem of double counting. We have already included this value in 100 rupees. 50 of rupees milk, 50 of milk, and 50 value addition has taken place. Value addition. Okay, so this was all about intermediate and final goods. Now let us come to the difference between consumer and capital goods. Now what are consumer goods? Consumer goods are those goods which lead to the direct satisfaction of human wants. So for example, if I go to market and buy ice cream or pen and I buy it, I am buying it for my own satisfaction. So those will be considered consumer or consumption goods. However, those goods which do not lead to the direct satisfaction of human wants and are the fixed assets of the company are called capital goods. Example will be plant and machinery. There are some important points which you have to remember for capital goods. Let me just tell you that those goods which are used for several years and are of relatively high value are only capital goods. So if I say that nuts and bolts are also used in factories, however they are not of so high value. Though they are used for several years, they are not of high value. So those goods are not capital goods. Those goods are not capital goods. So again, I want you all to come to page number 21, where they've talked about the difference between consumption and capital goods, and I'll read it out for you. Consumption goods. First point: consumption goods lead to direct satisfaction of human wants. However, for capital goods, they say capital goods do not lead to the satisfaction of human wants. Second point, these goods are consumed by the households when purchased, and these goods are not consumed by the households when purchased. Instead, these are used by the producers for further production. So capital goods include both the things: the replacement of capital stock as well as new addition to the capital stock. Both the things. So the third difference which is there is expenditure on consumption goods is called consumption expenditure because it is consumer related, and the expenditure on capital goods is called investment expenditure. Why do we call it investment expenditure? Because it is going to generate returns in the future. Okay, and the fourth point, higher production of consumption goods lead to the welfare of people. It raises the standard of living of people. So when consumers buy goods, they keep on buying goods, it obviously raises the standard of their living. And for capital goods, high production of capital goods lead to high production capacity in the economy, and it is the backbone of GDP. Because as more and more investment will be done in the economy, it is obviously going to increase the national output. Okay, so now we come to question number 4, where we'll be discussing about the classification of consumer goods. So there are 4 types of consumer goods, basically: durable consumer goods, semi-durable consumer goods, non-durable consumer
Action.
non-durable goods and services. So what are durable goods? Durable consumption goods are those goods which are used for several years and are of relatively high value, very high value. And before we discard those goods, we use it for several years. So if I have to give you some examples, TV, scooter, motorcycles, washing machine, television, etc. will be durable consumer goods. Semi-durable consumer goods are those goods which are used for 1 year or relatively or slightly more, and those are of relatively not so high value. So again, semi-durable consumption goods examples can be clothes, furniture, crockery, etc. Non-durable consumer goods or single-use consumption goods are those goods which are used only for one time. We use it only for one time use. So non-durable or single consumption goods are those goods which are used in a single act of consumption. Example would be LPG gas, then milk, petrol, ink, which are of and also low value, etc. Services are those things. Services are those which cannot be touched or felt. They are intangible in nature. So services are those non-material goods which directly satisfy human wants. A apt example would be a mother cooking goods for her child, then also a doctor treating patients, etc.